Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This can be my mom because when it says it's unknown person, but I spoke with her this morning, as every morning, and Mama, sorry, I'm opening the works okay, I'm opening the works. Yes, it's my mom. Yes. Sì, sono nel teatro. Ciao amore, ciao. Sorry. I think if Marilia could call her and reassure her I'm safe and on the stage. When you are 89, we had a conversation about 20 minutes ago. Sometimes you forget the very recent time, but when you are a bit less than 89 like me, you may forget to switch off your phone. And so the story is always the same. Thank you for being back here in this beautiful theater. We are less people because I think today it is a bit more technical, but I think the quality of the people is the highest also today. And we are talking about mainly law and dispute resolution method and the relationship between the law and the practice, and we are talking about technical matters. Yesterday we said we want to have a sustainable shipping for sustainable work. The section that we will have after the legal section, which is in a version of shipping in the law, but is the law and shipping. The let's say technical session is called Better Vessels for a Better World. The last minute generally I make the title of the section, and I like this. It came out. I don't know if it's very new, very original, but I think that we need a better vessel for a better world. And we have also, before I introduce my very distinguished keynote speakers that will introduce this session. I would like to thank also Baroness Worthing for being here anytime, notwithstanding the problems that have forced us only for this year, I hope, to listen to her from video, which was anyway very, very good, very, very clear. And in fact, these things we are talking this morning, I think are very environmentally focused, because all this better ship, they are better because they are safer for the human life, but especially for the environment. And I must say that also the keynote speech that Mans Jacobson, the former director of the oil pollution limitation funds, is a very interesting lesson on law that is a law to protect the environment. So I think I hope that Bryony could be not anymore a virtual but a real speaker next year with us. And let me now give the floor to the first of these two very distinguished speakers, who is the Vice President of Comité Marittimo International, CMI, and the President, my President, of the Italian Maritime Law Association. By the way, he is also the son of the President. I think I would like to remember the Francesco Berlingieri, who is very well in Genoa, very actively studying, and he, I think, handed over Giorgio, because this is the 8th edition of Shipping in the Law, and he has been chairing the opening session of the first 3 editions, and is the honorary president of Comité Marittimo International. So through the Berlingieri family, which has been in maritime law about as much as my family has been in shipping from the 19th century or even more. I think it's a pleasure to have Giorgio here. He will tell us about a very important conference and seminar that was held in Genoa in September, and is the assembly of CMI, and he will give us a very brief report on the outcomes of this assembly. Please, Giorgio, come here from the podium.
Thank you. Francesco, quanto 10? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Francesco, thank you for this invitation, and you are always surprising us since 7 years now, but this is quite an incredible location, I think, as we all think. You know, we have a royal palace also in Genoa, but I think it is more or less a large flat in comparison with the royal palace in Naples. Well, I will just briefly tell you about this event which took place in September this year, namely the assembly and a seminar organized by the Comité Maritime International, which, as we know, is an international intergovernmental organization which has as its very scope the unification of maritime law through international conventions. The last time the CMI met in Italy was some 25 years ago, last time again in Genoa. The CMI holds conferences every 4 years. The last conference was in New York last year in 2016. The next one will be in Tokyo in 2020. In between there are seminars and assemblies, and this time the CMI convened in Genoa, mainly to honor his president ad honorem, Professor Francesco Berlingieri. And previous conferences of the CMI in Italy took place in Venice in 1907, in Genoa in 1925, and in Naples in 1951. That was a very important conference because then it led to the ratification of the 1952 Brussels Convention on Arrest of Ships. This time, in September, the CMI convened in Genoa, and a seminar took place, and the topics were important topics regarding maritime law and recent developments regarding maritime law. The seminar was opened by Mans Jakobsson, who delivered a presentation on the Torrey Canyon, because as we know, this is the 50th anniversary of the Torrey Canyon. The casualty, in fact, took place in 1967 off the coasts of the southwest England, and massive pollution took place in the English coast and also in Brittany. And further to this accident, studies and searches started to come up in order to cope with pollution consequences and limitation of liability, and of course compensation. And the searches and the studies made by the IMO and the CMI, of course, then open to two very important instruments, namely the CLC Convention of 1969 and the FAN Convention of 1971. Then there were other subsequent conventions, namely the 1992 CLC and FAN Convention, and then a supplementary FAN protocol in 2003. So this was quite a topic which was beautifully reported by Mans Jakobsson. Another quite important topic discussed in Genoa was the OW bankruptcy and all the litigation which followed. And of course, Francesco Lauro was is and was quite involved in all the various litigations, and so this is quite an important topic which is still before the courts worldwide, of course. Another topic which was discussed was the Hanjin bankruptcy, which of course opened quite substantial litigation all around the world, of course. And then we also discussed offshore liability, pollution from offshore platforms, and relating limitation and compensation. I do not think we will proceed with a convention, but possibly with regional regulations regarding limitation and compensation. These were the main topics of the seminar, but there was another parallel seminar taking place in Genoa, organized by the young sections of the CMI and of the Italian Maritime Law Association, namely the Ballast Water Management Convention, which entered into force at the very day of the seminar, namely the 8th September of this year. The convention is dated 2004, but just entered into force in September as a consequence of the number of ratifications. This is quite an important instrument for shipowners, and there are very many technical issues regarding this convention and the compliance with its rules and provisions. And it is said that for every ship to comply with the provisions of this convention, and depending on the water ballast capacity, the cost would be from $500,000 to up to $5 million US. So it will be quite an exercise for ship owners. So these were the main topics of Genoa, which were discussed in Genoa, and the way ahead of the CMI is that next year the CMI will meet in London in November, I think, and then in 2019 the assembly will take place in Mexico, and then, as I said before, there will be a conference in 2020 in Tokyo after the Olympics, I think in October or November. The way ahead of the CMI, of course, there are so many works in progress in the agenda of the CMI. One of the topics under discussion is wrongful arrest. As we know, there are two conventions regarding arrest of ships, the 1952 Convention and the 1999 Convention. And Article 6 of the Convention provides some guidance on wrongful arrest, but but the provisions only refer to the law of jurisdiction of the arrest, and therefore there are efforts of the CMI trying to make some sort of unifications regarding liability for wrongful arrest. Another important topic on which Jonathan Lux, who is here today, is pretty much involved is the Convention on Judicial Sales of Ships, recognition of judicial sales of ships in the jurisdiction, in a different jurisdiction from the jurisdiction in which the judicial sale has taken place. This because it is important for the successful bidder to register of course the sale and the ship in a new register, and of course it is important for him to cancel the ship from the previous register. There are no conventions actually. There are no conventions on this field, and so the CMI felt necessary to study an instrument providing some rules, international rules regarding this topic. Another quite important study which is for the CMI is of course, well, I would say first another study which is to be considered, and Italy is very interested to that, is the implementation of international conventions, of course, because it is not sufficient that international conventions are ratified and enter into force, but it is important that every contracting state then proceed with the correct implementation of the convention in its jurisdiction. And to this effect, I mentioned that Italy is not yet party of the London Limitation Convention, the LLMC 1976 and 1996. This is very sad for Italy, and more sad because Italy has no limitation provisions in its domestic legislation. In fact, with legislative decree 111 of 2012, implementing the regulation of European Union 20 of 2009 on compulsory insurance regarding maritime claims, Italy, yes, implemented the European regulation, but deleted Article 275 of the Code of Navigation regarding limitation of liability of ship owners, which now is in force in Italy only for ships under 300 tons. So actually, there is no limitation for ships flying the Italian flag. And I think the Italian Maritime Law Association, together with Confitarma, the Italian Shipowners Association, should try to press the competent ministries, the Ministry of Justice, of course, and the Ministry of Infrastructure and Transport, in order to ratify this very important international instrument. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.